Hey guys, it's the Coaster Battleman here bringing you an awesome coaster countdown. The top 10 roller coasters at Cedar Point. And I know I did a top 15 roller coasters at Cedar Point a while ago, back in the summer of this year, in the middle of the season after I went to Cedar Point for the first time. And my list has kind of changed, but one thing has happened that's making me do a top 10 instead of a top 15. Mean Streak, the park's largest wooden coaster, is no longer operating and is getting the RMC treatment. So, here are the top 10 coasters at Cedar Point. But here are some honorable mentions before I start out. 14th is Cedar Creek Mine Ride, a pretty rough mine terrain, but at least families would enjoy it. 13th is Corkscrew, an awful aero looper that is boring and rough. Number 12 is Blue Streak. This ride is rough, but the airtime that it has is actually very good. At number 11 is Iron Dragon. Not as good as the Bat at Kings Island, but still a very good aero suspended coaster. And with virtual reality, this ride is pretty awesome as well. Coming in 10th place is Rugarou. This is the B&M Floorless coaster of Cedar Point. And this used to be a stand-up roller coaster, as you all know. It used to be called Mantis, and it was a rough ride, not that good. But now it's called Rugarou, and it's a floorless. And in my opinion, Rugarou is actually a pretty good ride to start out. The drop is very fun. The first vertical loop is probably the best part of this ride. There's a dive loop, which is pretty good, a nice stand-up roller coaster style turnaround, as well as an incline loop. Like, the first half of this ride is very fun, but after that mid-course brake run, the corkscrew isn't that good. And then there's a bunch of random turns that go all over the place, and then you hit the brakes. So, Rugarou, the start of the ride is what makes it a pretty good coaster into the top 10 at Cedar Point. Number 9 is Magnum XL 200. I know I placed this ride at number 10 last season, or earlier in this year in 2016, but Magnum, it just keeps getting better and better. Every time I rode it, out of the few times I've rode it, it just became a much better coaster. The first time I rode this ride, it was very rough and painful, but the last time I rode this, the most recent, I really liked Magnum. So Magnum, I feel like as the season goes on, the ride just gets better and better. Number 8 is Wicked Twister. This is the Intimate Impulse. The launch is very fun. The two twisters are pretty intense, and be warned, if you're in the back row or the front row, you might get some headbanging on the twists, but if you're in the middle, I think you won't get any headbanging at all. I just prefer the front or the back because you get bigger drops with these rides and more intensity. Number 7 is Gemini, and this is the aerodynamics racing coaster of the park. In my opinion, the best aerodynamics coaster at Cedar Point. This is a very fun racing coaster. Both sides duel each other sometimes. Sometimes they don't, but if this ride is not dueling, this ride would be way more down on this list. But since it's dueling, this ride is pretty fun because you can high-five people on the other side, or try to. The drops are pretty fun. There's a few airtime hills and turns mixed in with the racing. So yeah, Gemini is a pretty nice hybrid at Cedar Point. Number 6 is Raptor, and this is the B&M invert, and I know I had this ride a lot lower, but I don't really understand why I had it so low. This is just one intense ride, especially at night. This ride is awesome. I really like the intensity level of Raptor. To me, a night ride on Raptor is the best, but a day ride is still pretty good. This ride has a pretty good drop, intense inversions, but my only complaint about Raptor is that there could be some headbanging, but it doesn't really bother me that much. Number 5 is Valeria, the B&M Dive Coaster, the newest ride at Cedar Point, or new for 2016, that is. new for 2016 coaster at Cedar Point. This ride is the first dive coaster to come to the US since Griffin in 2007, so it has been 9 years since the last dive coaster, and boy, this is a pretty awesome coaster if you ask me. Like, coaster enthusiasts say this ride is just okay, but I think this ride is awesome. Even though dive coasters are one-trick ponies, the opening drop is awesome, the Immelman is good. But to me, the ride, the only problem I have about it is the duration, and it is kind of sluggish depending on what time you're riding the ride during the day. Number 4 is Gatekeeper, the B&M Wing Coaster. Same thing with Valraven. I feel like in the daytime this ride isn't as good as at night. And boy, Gatekeeper at night is like the best thing ever. It feels like the wing over drop gives you great hang time. You get airtime on that pointless airtime hill. The inversions are very fun. The keyhole towers are awesome. And I just really love Gatekeeper. I've rode it several times at Cedar Point. It's just a very fun coaster, and it has a great color scheme as well. Number 3 is Top Thrill Dragster, the first ever coaster to go over 400 feet, or at least complete circuit at least. And this ride is awesome. The first launch is insane. It's very intense and fast. You go up to the top and you might roll back, but you actually make it over the top and drop through the twisting spiral, back down, and then you'll hit the brakes. This ride is very short. That's probably the only problem I have with this ride. Plus, it kind of breaks down a lot, but this ride is so awesome, especially at night, front row. Oh my gosh, this ride is awesome at night. Number 2 is Maverick, and this is just one intense ride. Great Intamin roller coaster. The launch is awesome. The first lift hill is awesome. The beyond vertical drop gives you some crazy ejector air. The 2 airtime hills there are on this ride give you some solid ejector airtime as well. There's some crazy bank turns in there. There's a few inversions too. This is just an awesome ride with tons of elements, and it's very small though, but packs a very, very big punch, and it's just a perfect coaster in my opinion. And number 1 is the one, the only, Millennium Force. Now, this ride, just pure fun. This is my number 1 coaster, and in my opinion, this is just one of those underrated rides from a coaster enthusiast perspective, because tons of people don't say this is their number 1, even though some enthusiasts do say it. But I feel like Coaster Studios made the trend that Fury 325 is the best ride in the world. But Millennium Force is up there. I haven't ridden Fury, so I don't know how good it is. But Millennium Force, just what a fun coaster. Great bank turns. Some nice airtime moments that are very fun. The drop is awesome. And in my opinion, back row on Millennium Force is the best on it. It's just a very fun coaster, and definitely the best ride at Cedar Point, in my opinion. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and coaster countdowns.